This will be a full tutorial where I am going to teach you how to convert this design into the actual one-page website. This website is built with a Kotlin and a Compose HTML framework, Cobweb. At the end, we are gonna deploy this website on a web hosting as well. Stay tuned. First, we are going to start by creating a new project. I'm not going to talk too much about the Cobweb framework, since I have already made a video where I have explained it in more details. But basically it's a Compose HTML framework that allows you to write the Kotlin code with the composable functions that will be eventually translated into HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So yeah, you write Kotlin and build websites. Now, open up the CMD. I assume that you have already installed the Cobweb binary. If not, check my other video to learn how to do it. Here, we need to write the command to automatically generate the new project so that we can get started as quickly as possible. I'm going to navigate to my Cobweb directory here that I have previously made, in which I host all my Cobweb projects. Then, write the Cobweb create command. There are quite a few templates here that we can choose from, but I will select an empty one to start from scratch. Next, specify a folder name for this project. Give your project the title, then the group ID as well. Here, type yes, because we're going to use a default UI library which is available with the Cobweb. We don't need a server behavior right now, but this is a quite useful option for building a full stack applications on which I have made a complete course that you can check out. We don't need a markdown support either. And yes, let's initialize Git for this project, initial commit, and a message as well. There you go, we have successfully set up and generated a new project. Now, launch an IntelliJ IDE and open up that same project. You will see a site module here that contains a JS main directory. That's where we are going to define how our website will look like. We can remove those default README files that comes with this template. And before we start coding, I'm going to paste here all the resources that we are going to need for this project, like a custom vector icons, a profile photo, and also two main fonts that we will use on this website. I have also made a custom CSS file that basically links those two fonts. In the Gradle file, we also need to add the link in the head tag to link that same CSS file of ours so that we can use those fonts without any issues. Perfect. Afterwards, to represent all those vector icon resources in our project, I will create a custom Kotlin object that will hold the exact names of those same resources so that we can actually later use them in our project with ease. While we are here, we can also create another Kotlin object to represent string values on our website. Great. Another object to hold our profile photo. One enum class to hold our color palette, where each color is represented through an RGB class. And even one more object to hold different kind of dimensions for our website. Now, every good project cannot be created without a previously prepared UI design, which is why I have already designed this whole website for both a light and a dark theme, but also for different devices on which this website should be viewed, like desktop and mobile. You cannot build a house without a proper blueprint, right? This design contains all necessary dimensions, margins, padding values, font sizes, and other different dimensions that I'm going to include in our website. I also do have a complete course about UI design with Figma that you can check out. Anyhow, at the end of this tutorial, I will show you how you can get this design file as well. But for now, let's get back to our project. In this project you will see a pages directory that contains the index Kotlin file that represents the main page of our website. It's a simple composable function annotated with a page annotation. To see how this page looks like so far, we need to run the web server. So, open up the terminal and then type cd site to navigate to that directory. After that, run the command web run to launch the server. And you will be able to see this website on a local host with a port of 8080. There we go, so now we can see a simple text on the center of our screen, and that's a default website page. Now go back and let's start working on our ProfileCard component. I will create a new Kotlin file that should hold that ProfileCard composable. It should have two inner components, a left and a right side. The left side will contain some information, while the right side will hold only one profile photo. So, create a composable function for each one of those sides and place them inside the profile card. The profile card will have a simple grid composable which comes right out of the box, and it can help us to make our website fully responsive. For example, when using a bigger resolutions, we will add the left and the right side composables one after another inside two columns. While when using smaller devices, those two composables should be placed on top of each other inside a single column instead. And a simple grid composable handles that automatically by itself. Quite useful function. That behavior is specified within the num_columns parameter. In this case, we have specified that on a breakpoint which is a medium or higher, we should have two columns, one for each composable. And in base, when using smaller devices than medium, then we should place our composables on top of each other in a single column. You can also change those breakpoint values by yourself, but if you wish to do that, then you should check the official documentation about the CoWeb, since I'm going to use the default values here for the breakpoints. Pretty convenient. Next, let's add some modifiers. Those modifiers are not the same as with Android, and their order is not important. With a Compose HTML, modifiers are mostly related to some CSS properties. Here we will use a box shadow to our profile card, some padding on each side, then a border radius, a background color, and for now the background color should be white, but later in this tutorial we will handle the dark mode as well. Perfect. Next, I will create here a variable and then call remember breakpoint so that we can actually properly react in our code when the size of the web browser changes. I will call fill maximum width modifier and specify the size of this card width based on the breakpoint. When using larger devices, the width should be fixed. In this case, that's 1000 in pixels. While when using smaller devices, the width should take the whole available space instead. Great. Next, I will add the then if modifier, which will include this height modifier only if this condition is true. So the profile card height will be fixed for 600 in pixels only on larger devices or breakpoints. Otherwise, when using mobile devices, the height will be dynamically calculated based on its content size. Awesome. Before we check how our website looks like so far, let's call this composable function inside the index page. Now, we need to center this card on the center of this website, which is why I will wrap it inside the box composable. And the box composable will fill the maximum size, and its background color will be a linear gradient that we have already defined. Finally, let's open up this website and see what we have here so far. Awesome. So for now we have made that linear gradient as a background of our website, and on the center we can see our actual profile card. So far so good. Alright, next let's define the right side of the profile card. It should be quite simple. It will contain only one image that represents the profile photo and should fill the available width and height. The height should be the same as the profile card height minus the padding values on the top and the bottom, which are 12. So 12 times 2 equal to 24. Pass the breakpoint as a parameter and let's open up a web browser. Perfect, it looks really nice. Now it's time to start working on the left side. This side of the card will hold most of the elements, and we are gonna place them inside a column. This column will take the available space in the card, and we are gonna add the 50 pixels padding on each side. Then add the vertical arrangement and a horizontal alignment. The alignment will be handled with the help of a breakpoint. Elements inside the column should be placed on the center when using a smaller devices. Or otherwise, on bigger devices, a default alignment will be from the start. The first element should be the text that shows the first and the last name. The font family for this first text should be unique, large and bold enough to grab the most attention from the users. We took the text from the resource string object, and the color of the text for now should be white. The font size 50 pixels, font weight bold, and also a text alignment should be dynamically calculated based on the breakpoint value. Next, below that, another text for the profession, with a different font size, font family, and a margin on the bottom. Below that, we need to add a small divider with a blue color that should separate those first two text elements from the rest. The alignment as well, dynamically calculated. Then there is About Me text. Here I'm adding a line height to be a little bit larger than usual, and the opacity to 50% just to grab a slightly less attention than those first two main text elements. The margin on the bottom a little bit larger than usual, 36 in this case, like from our design project, to separate that from our button. Now the next component is the button, so the button should have an image along with a text. This button composable comes right from the Silk UI layer of a cobweb library. It has some default styling as well, which we're going to change a little bit later. For now, just specify its size to be large. Then, inside the button, we're gonna add an image or the icon and a text. The margin between them should be around 12 pixels. And that's pretty much it. Now, let's open up the web browser to see how our website looks like so far. Alright, so far so good. And our website also is fully responsive as well, which is amazing. So before we start working on those social icons below, I'm gonna show you how to customize this button transition animation and add a click behavior. First, we need to create here a new directory and a Kotlin file that will hold that new custom animation or a style of our button. This component style variable will provide some useful APIs to work with, and we will be able to define how our button will look like in different states, like a base state, a hover, active, before, after, enabled, checked, and so on. Those are all well-known states of a CSS. In this case, we need to define only two states, base and the hover. In the base state, we should have a padding on the left and the right side about 12 pixels. And when we hover over on that button, the padding should increase to 20 instead. But we also want to add some smooth transition animation between those changes. So, in the base block, define a CSS transition as a modifier that should have a property name and a transition duration. If you are not sure about the name of the property, you can call transitionProperty.all, which is totally fine. Now, we need to call this a style on our button like this. Perfect. Next, To add the click behavior on this button that should open up an email in the browser, you just need to call window.location.href and specify this mail to string that points to our email address. So, open up the web browser to test this logic. As you can see, whenever we hover over on the button, we should be able to see this beautiful and smooth transition animation. And when you click the button, we should be able to see a new tab appearing with that same email address filled in automatically. Amazing! Next, we need to create a component for the social icons. That same component should be reused for the theme button on the top right corner, which is why I'm going to call it an IconButton. Now let's create a new Kotlin file for that component. And before we start, we need to somehow represent all those social icons with actual icons and the links that we're going to open up when clicking on each one of them. For that matter, let's create here a new enum class where each entry will hold two properties, vector icon and the link. Here we have icons for both light and the dark theme. Now, get back to the IconButton composable to specify a few parameters, like a modifier, icon, a link, default icon size, which will be 24 pixels in the first place, and an optional onClick lambda that will trigger whenever we press this icon. Now this optional lambda should be used for the theme icon button later, and we're gonna handle the click event on those social icons a little differently. The icon itself will be wrapped inside the link composable, which will automatically handle the click event and trigger that link that we are passing to it. A link is a well-known HTML element that most of you already know about it. Then inside we are wrapping an image inside the box, and the box itself will have 8 pixels in a padding on each side, so that we can separate the icon a little bit away from the box border, and the box border will have a width of 1 pixel colored in gray. Alright, now when we hover over this component with our mouse cursor, the cursor should change to a pointer as well. And the border radius should be 8 pixels, the same as the ProfileCard component. And that's pretty much it. We can now go back to the LeftSide component, create the new row with a 12 pixels of a gap between its child elements, or social icons in this case. The arrangement of this row will be dynamically calculated based on the breakpoint. Then, inside this row, I am getting all social icon enum entries and filtering them to get only those icons that contains the light word inside its name. That way, I'm gonna grab only the 3 icons that are made for the light theme. And we are going to handle the dark theme at the end. Of course, for each one of them, we are displaying an IconButton component. So, we can try opening the web browser to see how all those icons looks like so far. Awesome! We can now see the actual social icons below the button. But if we hover over on them, then nothing happens. So let's go back and create here a new transition animation or a hover animation to enhance the user experience a little bit. For that matter, let's create here a new Kotlin file IconStyle, then a new component style variable with a base and a hover state. In the base state we are defining the background color, a rotation and a transition. While in hover state, we want to animate the background color and a rotational angle. Perfect. Now let's pass this new style to a modifier of each icon button. Perfect. Open up the web browser, hover over on one of those social icons, and voila, it works. Also, if we click on one of them, then a new tab will appear with that same link that each social icon already have. Great. We can also try zooming in here a little bit with a Ctrl plus mouse wheel to see how this website should look like on smaller devices as well. And as you can see, the website is fully responsive. The last thing, we need to adapt this website for a dark theme as well. So let's do that. Now we are gonna build a theme switch button. For that purpose, we can reuse an already made component, an IconButton. However, there is one thing that I need to point out here. This theme switcher button should be placed on top of all other elements on the website, and its position should be fixed on the top right corner. At the base here, we are using the icon button. Its margin and the icon size should be both calculated based on the breakpoint. We are going to add here a new color mode parameter to the icon button, since we are gonna need it for the theming. We should also use it to decide the color of the background as well. When the light theme is on, use a sun, otherwise use a moon icon. Afterwards, we are wrapping this component inside a column that should take the full size and place the button in the top right corner. One thing to point out here is that we are passing a custom properties like the z-index and the pointer events. A z-index means that this component should be placed on the top of all other different components, and the pointer events in this case means that we should disable a click event on this column itself, since it's gonna take the whole screen and place on top of other components. And we also need to add that same pointer events and set its value to auto on the icon button itself, because we need to propagate those click events to our theme button properly. Awesome! This component should be placed on the home page, where we are going to initialize and pass the color mode object as well as the handle on click event on the theme button. There are two color modes here, light and a dark. When we press the button, we are changing the mode to its opposite value. And also we are saving our choice in the local browser storage. Here we also need a launched effect block that should trigger only once we enter the composition to check that saved color mode value in the storage and apply it on our website immediately. And that's how we can successfully persist a user choice on our website. Now let's open up the web browser to test this logic and see how our local storage changes based on the user input. Okay, so open up the local storage settings of your browser and observe that value while we are clicking the button. Now we can see a light, and after we press it again, then that value will update to a dark. Perfect. Now we need to handle the style of our theme button. So let's create here a new style for our theme icon. And in this case, I'm not going to include the rotational transition animation. Instead, we are going to animate only the background color. So the base and the hover state. There you go. Now let's include this theme to our modifier. Launch the website. Perfect. So now our button looks pretty nice. Now the last thing which is left here is to update our website colors based on the color mode value. So first let's start with the website gradient color. Then pass this color mode to a profile card, because there we need to update all those text colors like the name, profession, divider, about me text, then the button text as well as the button icon. And also we need to filter properly those social icons based on the current color mode as well. And we need to pass the color mode to the icon button, and I think that we are good to go. Perfect. Now let's open up the browser to see how this new dark theme looks like. The theme is working great, and we are able to save the user choice in the local storage as well. Now, one more thing that I need to fix here is the color of this button. Since this is a default component from a Silk cobweb library, we can modify its state colors quite easily by annotating a custom function with init Silk annotation. Here we can call the context parameter, then the theme, palette, and we can access both the dark and the light theme. For each color mode, we can override its component colors. For now, we are just gonna focus on a button and its three states like a default, pressed and hover. Here for the colors, the expected type is a color and not a CSS color value type like we already have in our theme enum class. Which is why I'm going to quickly change that type in our enum class, and everything will work fine as before without any migrations whatsoever. Awesome. Now pass the proper color values to those button states. And there you go. We can go back to the website and voila. Now everything looks perfectly fine. So that's how you can easily build a website with your favorite language, Kotlin, and Jetpack Compose syntax. But remember, this is not a pure Jetpack Compose, but rather Compose HTML, which translates your code eventually into the HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Lastly, to complete this video, I'm gonna show you how to export this website and deploy it on a web hosting right away. Finally, after you successfully build your website, you need to export it as a static website so that we can get all the necessary files that we can upload on a web hosting. If you are still running the CoWeb server, then press Q on your keyboard to quit it. Then write the following command: CoWeb export // layout static. Now, while we wait until the website is fully exported and ready, I'm going to open up the render.com, which is a web hosting on which I will deploy my website. You can of course choose any other hosting as well, it's your choice. But this one has a really nice user interface. So, be sure to create an account and sign in. Once we are at the dashboard, we need to click here New and then a static website. Then, here on this page, you can connect your GitHub profile so that you can easily deploy your website project. So before we deploy that, let's go back to our IntelliJ IDE project. And after a successful export, you can push this project on a GitHub. So the exported files will be located in the site CoWeb site directory. And before you push this project, be sure to exclude this path from the git ignore file. And only then we can mark all those new files and commit and push our repository. Perfect. Now we can go back on render.com and we can now choose that same repository that we have just pushed. Then after that, we can specify the exact directory under which we have exported our website, which is in this case .site/.coweb/site. And finally, let's deploy this website and wait until it's fully ready. And voila, now our website is live. We can access this website on this specific URL, so in this case a personal website demo.onrender.com. So let's open up that website. And there you go, so now we have that same website that we have created. If you wish to buy your own domain, you can easily do that from the settings of your project. So just go to the settings, scroll down below until we find that section for a custom domain, and from there you can of course buy your own domain and connect that with your website, so it's quite easy. Anyhow, here as you can see, this actual website also has that local storage, so we can check that out. As you can see, now we have a dark theme, and even after we actually refresh this page, the theme will still persist. Perfect. If you wish to learn how to build a full landing page with lots of interesting animations, various sections, contact form, header, footer, etc., then be sure to check my full online course on my platform. Anyhow, if you are looking for a design project of this one-page website, you do need to download my application from the Play Store and redeem that reward by watching ads. Other than that, the source code of this project should be available on my GitHub profile. The link will be down in the video description. So comment down below and let me know your overall thoughts about the Compose HTML technology, and don't forget to like this video if this kind of content has helped you in any way. Thank you for watching.
I'm a legend when they lay me down to